What's up, guys? So we're going to be talking about 5 reasons why you should consider buying these $300 iPhones for going into 2021. So let's go ahead and get started here, and let's just pull up the price real quick so I can show you guys. All of these are 300 bucks. So I always get questions about these phones and which ones should you buy. And today we've got the iPhone XS, the iPhone 10, the 10R, the 8 Plus, and the SE 2020 here. So if you just go ahead and start off with the 10S, you can see that it is trending around 350, 340 bucks. Sometimes you'll see it for 330 bucks. Like I picked mine up for 330 bucks. And then the iPhone 10. Now the issue with the iPhone 10 is that it's not that much cheaper than the 10S, and the 10S is definitely a much better phone, which we'll get into, why I think that. But as you can see, 311, 308, that's not really a big difference there, because if you get this one, 343 or 350, not that big difference. Also, the iPhone 10R, very nice phone. Again, 325. I have all these links down below. And then the iPhone 8 Plus, still a very relevant phone for people who want the power button, or not the power button, but the Touch ID and the a physical home button, and you don't want the whole gesture thing. And the SE 2020 is kind of unique in itself, very powerful, very small for people with smaller hands, and then around 330 bucks. So as we can see, all these phones kind of around the same price, but which one do you pick? Alright, so the first thing I want to mention is the displays. So the displays on these phones are really nice, and I think the best displays have to be with the iPhone 10 and the 10s. These have actually OLED displays, and they look really nice. They're 1080p plus displays here, and I just really like the iPhone 10's display. It gets very bright as well too, so that's why I say it has one of the best displays. So if you're really like one of those people that are into watching a lot of video, photo editing, the OLED displays are just gonna look better, and they're gonna be more accurate as well. So the 10, 8 Plus, and the SE, they have pretty nice displays, the Retina displays, so they're pretty sharp, but they're IPS panels, and they just don't get as bright, and they're not as color accurate, but they are still pretty good panels. The 10R and the 8 Plus, pretty big screens, again, considering iPhone size, but still very good displays. The SE 2020, it is still one of my little favorite phones for the $300 price point, because you don't really have phones at the 4.7 inches anymore. If you look at your average phone size, like these OnePlus 7 Pro, just look at how small it is, right? So, it's very unique for people who want the small phone experience. You just put it in your pocket and you can barely, tell it's there. So that is one thing that I really like. Next would be the build quality. So like some $300 phones, sometimes they'll be like, plastic phones or a hybrid build. These are actually full glass and metal phones, and they all have IP ratings as well. And I think they all still they still look pretty good to me. I think the 10 series is still my favorite looking design pretty much all time from Apple. I really do love the 10 and 10s design. It's very classy looking phones here. I just really love how they look and feel. But as far as how phones feel in the hand, the 10R feels the best to me. The 10R and the iPhone 11 are, I think, all-time favorite feeling phones. I think they're the perfect weight, and also just how the phone curves, and the 10S does as well too. But I just love the thickness and just how it feels in the hand, and the brushed aluminum on here. This thing is a really nice looking design here, but they all have that nice premium feeling design, which I think that a lot of people will really like here. And also, one thing to mention about the hardware is that the 8 Plus is one of the last relevant big phones with the home button. So if you need a physical home button here, the 8 Plus is definitely going to be a great option. And for those of us that really just prefer Touch ID, this just works awesome on this device. So that is also one thing that I really like. Now next is going to actually be gaming performance here. So gaming performance is still pretty good on these older iPhones, but there are a big difference here. So the Apple A12 chip, which you'll find in the XS and the XR, is actually going to give you the best gaming performance here. So on a game like PUBG, we can actually play HDR Extreme, even going all the way up to Ultra HD here. So that's why I really like this phone for its gaming performance here. But if we go to, let's say, the 8 Plus, and this goes for the 10 as well, you know, we can play at you know, HDR, but it'll be HDR Ultra. So, you know, it still plays very smooth at, you know, the low settings at extreme. So I don't have an issue. And like I said, one of the benefits of gaming on here is you don't have to deal with the notch. It has just the full screen display, no interruption. So that is one thing that I noticed. But if you're a gamer, you know, you can spend $300 and easily have great performance here. And what's interesting is that the SE 2020 is actually the most powerful phone out of the bunch here. It has the Apple A13 chip, so it ranks higher in benchmarks, and overall it's just going to be the better device. It just stays extremely smooth. This phone really, I've never had really a hiccup on this phone. It is very smooth, very consistent with speed, performance. The only downside to this phone would be battery life here. And let's go ahead and actually talk about battery life. So out of all of these phones, I would say the XS and XR have the best battery life, and then it would be the 8 Plus, and then the 10 is just kind of okay. It's similar to the 10, but not quite. And I'm not just going off my personal experience. I've looked at other people's battery drain tests as well. The SE 2020 does have the smallest battery, so it's gonna overall, you know, do the worst. But yeah, so that is one thing to take into consider as well. But all these phones are great gaming phones. Now the next thing would definitely be speaker quality. I think this is one of the most slept on things about iPhones, is that I've noticed they're very consistent with always putting a really great speaker in their smartphones, and also they're all stereo speakers as well. So let's go ahead and do a quick comparison. I'm just really curious. They all have good speakers, but I'm trying to see if I can spot a difference here. They're all at max volume. We'll start with the XS. Alright, so I noticed more bass with the XR. Yeah, just a little bit more thicker, more fuller bass with the XR. The 8 Plus sounds exactly like the XS and the 10. And you know, to no surprise, the SE still sounds good for its size, but it definitely sounds a lot more flatter, just not as a fuller sound, especially with the bass. Yeah, but not bad. So I actually would say it's between the XS and the XR for the best speaker, but the XR definitely has a more punchier sound to it. So, you know, it varies, but I think I would go with the XR, honestly. Now lastly, let's talk about image quality, because all of these phones actually do a fantastic job at image quality. I was really surprised. If you guys go ahead and check out my comparisons with the iPhone 13 and 13 Pro I did with these older flagship phones, you will be surprised that they actually can compete, and they actually are pretty close. It's actually kind of shocking, and that was like the theme in the comments I noticed, was everybody was saying how close a lot of those shots were. There are some things to note. So the iPhone SE does have a single lens camera, and so does the iPhone XR. So yeah, no telephoto lens, just that single lens, which kind of makes it just feel a little bit outdated, but image quality is still pretty good on these phones here. I don't really have an issue with it. The selfie cam, video, it's all very good on these phones. But out of the bunch, I would say that the iPhone XS and then the iPhone XR have like the overall best cameras. They're just very solid, very consistent shooters. Yeah, so it would be between the iPhone XS and XR. I personally lean towards the XR photos a little bit more. The 8 Plus sort of falls in line with the SE and the 10 to me, but for the best camera, I would say it's got to be like the XR or the XS. Now, sometimes I go lean towards the XS a little bit more because you have the telephoto, but I think overall image quality, I still think I would go slightly with the XR there. So what do you guys think? Be sure to let me know, and I will catch you guys in the next video.